Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the 67-inch Edge 540 from ExtremeFlight. Man, I'm such a huge fan of these 67-inch airframes, and ExtremeFlight recently did kind of a revision on the color scheme on the Edge 540, and they came up with this really refreshed, kind of edgy color scheme, red, white, black. I really like it. And I've been waiting to get my hands on a 67-inch version of this scheme. So I'm really happy to have it, and we're gonna take a first look. We'll start off with the fuselage, and up front, the firewall is already done. There are blind nuts on the back. I don't know if I can get the camera to pick that up, but there are blind nuts right here on the back side of the firewall for the motorboats. So real easy installation there. Here's a look at the canopy. Nice little cockpit decals right there up front. Slide release right here on the side. And then as far as the mounting system goes, a couple of tabs right there on the front, and they slide into the fuselage. And there's a protective cover right there on the canopy. So very nicely done. The color looks really good. I don't see any blemishes in the paint. I just love ExtremeFlight planes. They just have a paint system that it's hard to beat. It's basically flawless. You never really see any issues on their planes. It's absolutely beautiful. Now inside the airframe, one of the first things that caught my attention is the tube that runs fore and aft, and that's for your servo wire. So that's actually a nice little feature. So now you don't have to get your arm in there and latch your servo extensions around hooks that they used to put on the formers. Now they have a tube inside, so you just run your wires right down that tube to the back for the servos. That's a nice touch. I do appreciate that. There's also, I noticed a tube right here in the front, and that's going to be for your ESC wire, your throttle wire coming off your ESC. That runs the throttle signal wire back to this receiver deck as well. So that's a nice touch. And then right here on the side, this is another new feature I've picked up on a couple of ExtremeFlight planes. They have this kind of rubberized insert right here, and that rubberized insert is meant for your battery connector to come up from the ESC, and it keeps it from dropping down into the bottom of the airplane. So that's just a nice little touch. And then of course the construction is that hybrid fusion composite and balsa design. ExtremeFlight planes are just so amazing in terms of their weight to strength ratio. You can throw anything you want at them and the airframes just stand up, and that's largely due to the way they build these models. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen. On the bottom of the fuselage, you can see cutouts for the landing gear and openings for the ventilation. And I really appreciate when they do that because they always get it perfect. It's always better than I can do it. So I always appreciate that. Port side of the fuselage, we'll take a look at the scheme. This is white, black, red, and a darker red. So just a really sharp and edgy color scheme on this model. I like it a lot. And I know from a contrast perspective in the sky, that's really going to show up well. Absolutely going to be fantastic to see this one. So port side looks good. There's the belly. There's the starboard side, and I see zero issues on the covering on this one. It's all fantastic. Another nice little time saver on ExtremeFlight airplanes, they put blind nuts on the back of the cowl extension tab so you can just screw your cowl in. Just a nice little time saver. They do the job for you. Next up, we'll take a look at the starboard wing, and you can see the aileron is already hinged and it's got the sealing tape over the gap, so you don't have to do that either. That's just another time saver. It's just a nice feature on these ARS from ExtremeFlight. It takes time to do that work. It's nice when they do it for you. On the underside of the wings, you can see the servo cutouts are already there. The holes are there for the servo horns, and then you got a nice contrasty scheme, white near the fuselage and black out here on the wingtips. So again, I don't see any issues at all with the covering. It looks fantastic. The leading edge looks perfectly straight to me. I don't see any waves or bowing or warps or anything, so that looks really good. And then the trailing edge of the aileron, also perfectly straight. I mean, you could put a straight edge on that thing. It looks really good. Yeah, so the wings on this airplane, they're very cool looking. Nice graphic scheme. I like it a lot. Very modern, very edgy. No pun intended. Here's the port side wing. Again, covering is flawless. Trailing edge looks straight as an arrow. No problems there. Leading edge, also perfect. One other thing I didn't point out in the fuselage, this airplane does have the quick connects. So that's a really nice feature when you get to the field It's got a quick release guillotine that latches onto that screw. And then you've got your incidence alignment pins here and here. So the wing slides on the spar tube, you drop the guillotine over the screw, the incidence pins go inside the fuselage, and the wing is perfectly aligned every single time. Isn't that color scheme nice? Very aggressive looking. Here's the horizontal stabilizer. And this is keyed for the airframe. So notice that the balsa is exposed, so it'll take your glue. You don't have to cut the covering off. And it's also keyed. So from an alignment perspective, they build these on a jig. You're going to be assured of a perfect alignment every time, so that fore and aft alignment for the leading edge of the stabilizer, you don't really have to worry about that. I check it anyway just to be sure, but I've never run into an issue when they have this keyed junction on the horizontal stabilizer. The elevator is installed already, and you can see the gap is already sealed with shrink covering, and you've got that composite material in there for the torque tube, so that makes sure that you've got a nice straight and no flex elevator operation on both sides. So perfect. On the trailing edge, really quickly, just a look so you can see how straight that is, perfectly straight. And then on the bottom, you've got that white and black contrasty scheme, so that'll look very different when you're tumbling the plane around. Here's a look at the rudder, and one of the first things I noticed is it's got a rudder hinge pin that goes the length of the rudder, the vertical length of the rudder. So to install this, you pull the pin out, you install the rudder on the plane, and then you slide the pin up from the bottom, and then the tail wheel will cover the pin to keep it from falling out. Here's the cowl, and I'll point out, just to match up with those blind nuts that we talked about earlier, the holes are already drilled in the cowl. Just another time saver on an ARF. For those of you who like to model, you may not care about this kind of thing, but if you're more into flying than building, these are nice little features because they just save time. That's all there is to it. They make everything very accurate, everything will line up clean, and they save time. Graphic alignment on the side won't be a problem because there are no graphics that extend from the fuselage onto the cowl. So no issues lining graphics on the side. And there's a look at the bottom. The paint is perfect on this. That is an opening right over your ESC. And of course up front, nice big ventilation, and the ventilation is ducted. And I'll note that those ducts are pre-installed from the factory. So right there, you've got motor ducts that'll take air in from the prop and blow it right over the motor. They're already installed. I really love these planes. They think of everything. I mean, this is just a well thought out design. What more can you ask for? World class. Love them or hate them, the plane comes with side force generators, and these are keyed for quick release. So there's a big hole right there. You put the thumb screws on the wingtips, you loosen them up a little bit, you slide the side force generator on, pull it back, and then take your thumb screws and screw them down. And these are quick release. Very nice, again, for assembly and tear down at the field. Really handy to have them keyed like that. I'm a big fan of those if you want to use the side force generators. Wheel pants painted to match, and again, from a paint perspective, absolutely flawless. I don't even see orange peel. A lot of times on these, you'll see a little bit of orange peel. I'm not even seeing orange peel. The paint just looks fantastic on these. Beautiful. The landing gear for ExtremeFlight planes, always carbon fiber, always fit perfectly on the plane. So there's a look at the landing gear. Lovely. This ARF also comes with a spinner. This is a black plastic spinner. It's not carbon fiber, but it does have the aluminum backplate, and it's got the bushings and screws inside. So when you take this out, make sure you don't lose track of that bag inside there. Here are the landing gear cuffs and the rubber trim already installed. That's another nice little time saver. Anytime I glue those on with CA, I always wind up with a mess on my hands. So it's just nice to see that they took care of that as well. All time-saving features of the build. In terms of hardware, there's a little bag for wheel pants, one for main landing gear. I like the way they organize these with the labels, so you can leave everything in the bag until you need it. That's the main wheel hardware, the rudder hardware, the main wing hardware, and the stabilizer hardware. And a couple little extras, looks like Velcro for your battery, and a few other grommets and knickknacks in that bag that'll help with the assembly. Nothing to write home about on the wheels, but they're included in the kit, of course. And here's the hardware for the side force generators, plastic spacers and red anodized thumb screws to hold everything together. To finish things off, I'll be using the KST X15 1809 servos on this build. I love the KST servos, they're excellent. I've had good performance results from KST, so I'm gonna stick with them. Inside the plane, I'll be flying it with the Radiomaster ER6 Express LRS receiver. I have that coupled with an ETC telemetry converter, and I do that because I wanna get current off of this one. So I'll see current on my radio using this converter. And then in terms of the ESC, it's a 116 amp T-Motor AM116, and the motor, of course, is the venerable T-Motor AM670. I love these motors. They fit perfectly on ExtremeFlight planes, and for a 67 class airframes, these 670s are just perfect. And I'll be using the 18-inch T-Motor carbon fiber prop. I'll also be using the ExtremeFlight servo arms. These are 1¼ inch Futaba 25 tooth, and you need 4 of those. One for each aileron, one for the rudder, one for the elevator. And then I'm also using the ExtremeFlight servo extensions. I've got two 12-inch that'll go from the aileron servos into the fuselage. I've got two 6-inch that'll connect to the receiver, and then I've got two 24-inch that'll be for the rudder and elevator. And here's the decal sheet that comes with the Edge 540. Normally, I don't use decals on my ExtremeFlight planes. I kind of like them just the way they come, but these look sharp to me, so I may use that Edge 540 on the plane. I kind of like that one, and I might stick that T-Motor one on the cowl just to give that a little bit of color, because remember, you got that big white space on the cowl. The T-Motor logo might look perfect in there, so I might use the decals this time. And then finally, I wanted to show you that this airplane does come with a wing bag. These are super handy. All of my ExtremeFlight planes have wing bags like this. The wing bag is big enough to carry both wings with a separator in the middle. And then there's also a little pocket for your side force generators. And there's a pocket right up here for the wing spar. So it keeps everything for the wing together when you're going back and forth from the field. I really like these wing bags, and I'm really happy ExtremeFlight includes them with their models. They're perfect. That wraps up my first look at the 67-inch Edge 540 from ExtremeFlight. We'll get this airplane put together as soon as possible, but I gotta tell you, we're a little queued up right now. We've got a 74-inch laser to maiden, we have an Avani 90mm to maiden, and then we've got this one to build and maiden as well. So there's a couple of airplanes in the queue ahead of this one. You'll have to stay tuned on the channel, just keep an eye. As soon as I can, we'll get this one built and brought out to the field for a maiden flight. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know new videos hit the channel, and smash that thumbs up button. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy, and go fly something. Here's a look at the canopy, and inside you can see a nice little detail screen. Here's a look at the canopy, and inside you can see a nice little cockpit in there with some gauges. On the bottom of the airframe, there are cutouts for the landing gear, and one thing I really enjoy that on the bottom of the fuselage, you can see the cutout for the landing gear. And then one of the other features I really like when they do this is when they open up the... that motor will also be swinging... What size is this? 18... I think it's an 18.8. I'll also be using the ExtremeFlight servo arms. These are 1.25-inch, and they're Futaba 25 tooth. I'll also be using the ExtremeFlight servo arms. I'll also be using the ExtremeFlight... Come on, man, spit it out. I'll also be using the ExtremeFlight servo arms. These are 1.25